So how do you photograph in misty and foggy environments? How do you evoke emotion in those? In this video, I'm going to share with you an encounter I had in Tanzania and how I photograph those situations. I'm Tim Manley, I'm a wildlife photographer. So I just came back from Tanzania a few weeks ago. First, I joined a group tour for 10 days and then I was on my own for 4 days. And after the 10 days of group tours, we were on our way from the tent to the airstrip that was about 2 hours away. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so clean. Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah, sorry, I messed up a little bit.
Oh no, it's beautiful. It's clean, nice and clean. Yeah.
You don't need to use this one.
No, I don't. Yeah. Oops. Right. Here I come. I get better now. Every time I hit my head when I got over. Okay. You need this one? Oh, good. Oh. And after we drove for a little bit, suddenly it started to get foggy. Our vehicle stopped for a moment, and then when I looked out, I saw an eland in the distance. So eland is one of the biggest African wildlife. I heard that they can run very fast and they can jump very high. We took a few photos and then we continued to drive. And then within a few minutes on our left-hand side, we saw a family of Thomas gazelle. So during this misty environment, I want to use a wide aperture because I want to evoke that emotion that is mysterious. So the blurrier, the more out of focus the environment, the better. So I just try to get a photo with the eyes sharp. This is a pretty good morning. And just when I was thinking about that, the vehicle stopped again. And we look out and there was a cheetah on the side of the road, and the cheetah looked pretty determined. So she walked closer and closer to us, and then I got quite a few shots. When the animals are pretty close, it is more difficult to get that idea of the foggy environment. I love that incoming angle. So we got a few photos and the cheetah moved on. We started to drive again. And just within a few minutes, we saw a male lion on the side of the road. And this doesn't happen a lot because we usually have to spend a long time to look for a male lion. And so this one was right on the side of the road. Lions tend to get up in early morning, and usually they would just patrol around their territory and maybe look for the rest of the pride.
Next bush.
No, he's coming out.
Okay.
Yeah, he's here. So we move back. Okay. Thank you. this lion started to walk on the opposite side of where we are going. Then it dawned on me, the lion is walking towards the area where there are a lot of fog. So that may be a very interesting opportunity. So as our driver asked us if we want to photograph that, and I said, of course, yeah, let's back up. All right. Yes.
This is very nice with the flower.
Oh yeah. Oh, looking at his kingdom. The low angle would be better. Not really actually. Well, actually it's not bad. But yeah, so for most of the wildlife photography, I want to get to eye level with the animals. From above, the photo is not as intimate as or not as powerful. However, in this situation, because I want to convey the feeling of the fog, and when I get on the eye level, the photo actually is not as powerful because I can't really see the fog. So as the lion walked closer and closer to the foggy area, I was trying all different kinds of position. I was getting lower and didn't work, and then I get into where I was sitting at the eye and it still didn't work. And then I had this idea, maybe I should stand up and get some photos. So I stand up and had the top of the vehicle opened up so that I can stand up and shoot downwards. And to my surprise, the photo turned out to be pretty good. So as we are backing up, I was getting up, getting down, trying to get a good position. And during those situations, it is very important to pay attention to three things. Number one is the eye contact and the angle of the face of the lion, because if it's blinking the eyes, it's just like human photography. You don't want to get a photo with the eyes closed, right? And also if they're looking away, then it's not as emotionally involving. So you want to get an angle that they look more handsome in a way. And number two is the limb separation. So as they walk, there is a moment when the 2 feet in the front will overlap with each other, and also the back side also overlap with each other. I talked to some of the photographers that I admire. They pay a lot of attention to the pose. And Leonardo da Vinci in his book also said that action leads to emotion. And the action, how the limb extension and all this is really important in his painting. I pay the same kind of attention to my photography. So I want to take a bunch of photos. I set it at the highest frame rate, and then later I will pick the photos with the best leg separation so that it looks really good without any overlapping. So number three is the surrounding. So for example, if the lion is walking, but from a distance, when we are getting the photos, there is a branch right behind the body of the lions. And in a photo, it will look like the branch is sticking out from the butt or from the body or from the head. So when I'm taking photos, when I'm doing this standing up and getting down and all these things, I'm also paying attention to wait for that moment when the surrounding is clean. I was also thinking about how to place the lion in the frame so that the whole composition is good. So there's a lot of thinking going on. So I was using mostly at 2.8 because I really want to blur everything out to intensify the feeling of the fog, right? So I was doing that, and finally there was a moment when the lion paused a little bit and looked back. And I always love those situations because when the body language of the animal is telling people something, they can always feel that emotion. The lion kept on walking, and I took over 1,000 photos. So I was like, yeah, the lion finally got into some tall grass in the distance, and we decided to wait for a little bit. And that's when I was like looking at thousands of the photos. And that's when I realized something was off. I see that there is something blinking in my LCD, something red. And then when I browsed through the setting of the camera, and I saw that the camera was in JPEG. And I was like, that is crazy. RAW file has 14 bits and JPEG only has 8 bits. It basically has ruined all the photos I took. So I didn't even realize when the photos has switched to JPEG mode because I definitely didn't do anything on that. So my heart is already broken in that moment. And then when I saw the autofocus mode, I see that there's AFS on my Nikon Z9. So that means it's single shot focus instead of the AI servo or continuous focus. That means that unless you keep on tapping the focus, once you lock the focus of the animal, the autofocus stops functioning. So that means that thousands of photos that I have taken, probably 99% of the photos will be out of focus. I immediately sat down and I felt defeated. And so basically all the settings were off and I had no idea when it happened and what causes that. And during that moment, somebody in the vehicle said, oh, the lions had already come out from the other side to drink water. So the vehicle was slowly getting into position to get that. But at the time I was like, I didn't even want to do anything. All my thousands of photos are gone and those were the best moments. The lion was in the best foggy area. There was a moment when the lion was sniffing on one of the small trees and was marking the area, and the whole scene was like a fairy tale. And if it was a JPEG and if it was AFS, it's not gonna be sharp, then it's like completely ruined. Anyway, so the vehicle got back into the location and the lions was drinking water. And at the time I had really two options. One is just to feel defeated and just throw my camera out and give up. Or I can just get back into the game. And I decided to pick myself up and go into the menu, change the JPEG back to RAW, change the AF mode back to AFC, and change my highest frame rate instead of whatever single frame rate or whatever. So while everybody were busy photographing the lion, I just go back into this, make sure that all the setting was right. And it really only took me like maybe 30 seconds. I missed some of the shots, but I make sure that everything was right, but I was still shaking because I really don't know how to do it and if the camera would still do that again. I was using a 7200 at the time because in a foggy environment, I want to have a wider angle to get more in the habitat. So I wasn't even using the 400. But in this kind of environment, like a once a lifetime environment with this mist, I really wanted to capture that habitat. 7200, I was using f2.8 most of the time. And for the shutter speed, because the light was pretty low, it's still in the early morning. So I was using only like 500 of a second because I don't need to have very high shutter speed when I was panning. I make sure that all the settings was right. I already lost trust of the camera, but like whatever, get back into photographing. And after the lion finished drinking water, he started to roar, probably looking for the rest of his family, for his pride. And because it's so foggy, he couldn't really see from a distance. So he roared really loud. He was just walking by and then he started to roar and I almost had ringing in my ear. And I managed to get a few shots that I would not have gotten if I just gave up or if I were shooting at AFS and in a JPEG. Anyway, so we got all these photos and eventually the lions walked to a further distance, and since there is no off-roading in Serengeti, we were just watching the lion walking away. So everybody was sitting down back into their seats in the vehicle and they were all happy, but my heart was aching because I realized that probably all these thousands of photos were gone, and those were some of the best moments I've had. I actually have seen a male lion in the mist 2 or 3 years ago in Kenya, but that moment only lasted for 3 seconds before the lion get up and get back into the tall grass, and we never see him again. But this one gave us opportunities of 1,000 photos. Yeah, I managed to lose them all. So everybody was smiling and looking at the photos, and that's when I started to look back into the photos. And turn out, over the thousands of photos, I was expecting that all of them were JPEG. Only about 5 photos or 10 photos were JPEG, and all the other photos were still raw. So I was like, yeah! So I didn't actually miss any photos. And there was only this little moments when suddenly the photo gone back. I think it might be because it was really humid at that day, because it was foggy, and then with the shaking of the vehicle and all these things, maybe the camera just had some error. Or some of you guys told me that maybe by accident I clicked on some of the functions that I didn't realize that it got into the factory default mode or something. But at the same time, I have also talked to 2 people who had used the cameras before, and they had similar experience, suddenly switched to JPEG. But I believe that it might be some of the button that I pressed. But this lesson really taught me that in nature, in the wilderness, crap always happens. We don't need to feel defeated. Just focus on that moment and try to do our best. At the end, I still got most of my photos good, even though for that 5 to 10 photos that I missed, really not missed is in JPEG mode. Those are really good moments that I missed. But what I learned is that I have to detach myself from that emotion in the moment and focus on trying to get the best photos. And if anything goes wrong, just focus on how to fix it. And don't get too disturbed by what other people are doing, and just focus on my own task. After all, the most important thing is the experience of being in the wilderness, being together right next to these beautiful animals in a complete amazing place. Photos are just like a side effect of this whole experience. So even though, of course, I still strive to get the best photos that I ever can, because I believe that animals need our help. And to be able to get the best quality photos to move people, it can really bring awareness to the conservation. So anyway, so if you enjoyed this video, I have another video of an amazing encounter on my last day in Serengeti, where I have a face-to-face experience with a lion while I was on foot. So definitely check this out. And remember to subscribe and comment below, and I'll see you in the next one.